The term any person is wide enough to include any individual, company, or association of persons, or body of individuals, society, partnership, firm, government, etc. So any person does not necessarily mean a single individual. It could also include a company or an association, society, firm, anything. So basically any person, including all these people, can apply for a trademark they have been using or they want to use in the future. So there is no restriction on who can apply. The implication of the section is that everybody and anybody can apply. Section 18 further provides that a single application may be made for registration of a trademark for different classes of goods and services, and the fee payable would be for each such class separately. So if I want to get a trademark registered for different goods, like I want to sell different kinds of goods under the same trademark and I'm the single proprietor of it, I want to sell a variety of goods and services under my own brand name. So I can file a single application for all different classes of goods and services, but the fee that I will pay will be for each class separately. Application for registration of a trademark is to be filed in the Office of the Trademarks Registry, within whose territorial limits the principal office of business in India of the applicant is situated, or in the case of joint applicants, as the case may be. So in which jurisdiction you will apply will depend on where you conduct your business. If you conduct your business in a particular area, you will go to that area's trademark registry and apply for your trademark. This is very obvious also. Why would you go to, if you live in North Delhi, why would you go to South Delhi to apply for a trademark? But anyway. Section 18 also talks about acceptance or refusal of application. It states that the registrar may, subject to the provisions of the Act, refuse the application, accept it absolutely, or accept it subject to certain amendments, modifications, conditions, or limitations as it may deem fit. So when the registrar receives a trademark application, after examining the same and after reviewing it technically, now how do you review the trademark? You review it under the grounds, absolute and relative grounds. So section 9 and 11, the registrar will go through those grounds. If it does not fall under any of the grounds of refusal, so it may be accepted absolutely. If it falls under any of the grounds, it may be refused. The third one is that the registrar could accept it, but he could impose certain conditions, or he could amend your application a bit and accept it after the amendment. So that is not absolute acceptance, that is subjective or conditional acceptance. In case of refusal or conditional acceptance, the registrar shall record the reasons for the same. So unless you are accepting it absolutely, the registrar has to provide reasons and in writing as to why he is refusing the application or why he is imposing certain conditions. Section 19 talks about withdrawal of acceptance. So after the registrar has accepted an application, he also has the power to withdraw it. So if he feels that he has accepted it by mistake, or he had accepted it under a mistake of fact or law, or like under a fraudulent impact of someone, so then he can withdraw the acceptance. After the acceptance of an application of registration, but before the final registration. So this is before the certificate is issued, but after it is accepted. So whatever time period there is in between, if the registrar is satisfied that the application was accepted in error, that in the circumstances, the trademark should not be registered or should be subject to certain terms or conditions, additional or different from the ones put before. So whatever terms and conditions were put in the third point here, if the registrar feels there should be something more added to those conditions, or there should be a different condition that he wants to add, he can apply for withdrawal under section 19. Then the registrar may withdraw the acceptance after hearing the applicant if he so desires and proceed as if the application had not been accepted. So now the acceptance of the application has been revoked, it has been taken back. So now he will proceed as if it is not yet accepted, as if it is still pending. This provision is an enabling provision. See, when a term enabling provision is used in any law, this is not only for IPR, this is for your general knowledge. So if anybody uses the term enabling, it means you are enabling an authority to you are conferring on the authority certain powers, and those powers, when you're allotting to them those powers and they can exercise them, like um, what is that called when you superseding some other rights, it is called an enabling provision. So these enabling provisions, nobody writes them as such. This is something extra that, like, as a lawyer I have gotten to know. So it is not written in any PAIR Act, but when you read a provision and you see that this provision is granting or conferring certain authority on an already existing authority in the act or the law you're dealing with, it is called an enabling provision. So this provision is an enabling provision and therefore should be exercised very rarely in unavoidable circumstances. When you're conferring certain extra powers, they should not be used arbitrarily. They should be used only when it is actually required. If the acceptance is made properly after thorough examination of the case in all aspects, the need for withdrawal will not ordinarily arise. So if you saw everything and after considering all grounds and every proper examination you have accepted it, then ordinarily the need for withdrawal must not arise. It should only be in some unavoidable circumstances where you could not scrutinize the application properly, should you be given the power to withdraw it. Because see, it's not fair on the applicant's part, right? So once you are accepting their application and the next moment you're withdrawing it, so it should not be like unfettered discretion. There must be certain restrictions also. After the application is advertised, after the application is accepted, it has to be advertised. Now, why advertisement is important? Because if you don't advertise it to the public, nobody will be able to oppose it. So it's only after the public gets to know it through advertisement will anybody who has, for example, a similar trademark, so they can only oppose it when they get to know of it. So if it is everything is being secretly done or not in public knowledge, then anybody can use copying trademarks. And unless the person enters the market with the trademark, nobody will get to know about it. So before issuing the certificate, an advertisement is put up of the person who wants to register this particular trademark. It is advertised for a couple of months, and during those time, if nobody opposes, it means the trademark is clear of any restrictions and it has passed all hurdle. So section 20 says, when an application for registration is accepted, whether absolutely or with conditions, the registrar shall cause the application to be advertised as accepted together with the conditions or limitations, if any, subject to which it has been accepted. So the third point where we say accepted with certain conditions, you have to also mention those conditions. Advertisement, you do under section 20. Then we come to opposition. Now section 21 deals with opposition. Now please remember the section numbers with what they talk about here. Here the section numbers are a bit relevant. Section 21 enables a person to give notice of opposition to registration in writing to the registrar within 4 months from the date of advertisement. So a time period or a window of 4 months is given. From the date of advertisement, any person can apply for an opposition. See, when an opposition proceeding begins, so I'll give you a brief how it's conducted if any of you want to ever get into trademark litigation. So mostly all the litigations relate to opposition. So if you get a client of 5PR, it will most probably be opposition of patent or opposition of a trademark. Now, why opposition is very important is that during the time of application, people don't know what other people are applying for. It's only when it is advertised that we get to know of it. Now, I am a trademark owner or a brand owner. I've been using a particular trademark since a long time. And then I see that somebody is trying to register a deceptively similar trademark in the registry currently. Like it is happening now after so many years. Now here opposition is very relevant because now the only remedy I have as an existing user is opposing to the trademark, because there's nothing else I can do unless the person starts using it. And once he starts using it, he will obviously hamper my reputation and everything, right? My goodwill, my consumer base will be affected. So the remedy that I have of filing an infringement suit will be after the damage is done. What recourse do I have to avoid any kind of damage to my brand is to file an opposition proceeding. That I try to stop them before the registration only. Infringement suits are filed after registration, so after the damage is done. But opposition provides remedy to the person before any damage is done, that is, before the application is accepted in the first place. In the case of American Home Products versus Match Laboratories, the Supreme Court had held that once an application is made and accepted by the registrar has to cause the application to be advertised within 3 months from the date of here it is written 3 months because by an amendment it was changed to 4 months. So in the case, when the case happened in 1986, it was 3 months only. So don't get confused with the like this numerical, because currently after the amendment it's 4 months. So if you're quoting the case anywhere, you will write 3 months because you can change the judgment. But if you have to answer a question with respect to opposition, the time period is 4 months. And any person may lodge a notice of opposition with the registrar in writing. A copy of the same will be served upon the applicant. Now, obviously, if you're opposing to someone's application, you have to also inform them, because according to principles of natural justice, both the parties have to be given an opportunity of being heard. So for that, you will also serve a copy of the opposition to the applicant. The notice of opposition may be given to the registrar by any person who's opposing registration, and the applicant may, in reply, file a counter statement. Now, the person against whom the opposition has been made, he can file a counter statement. Thereafter, the registrar is required, after giving opportunity to the applicant and the opponent of being heard, to decide whether registration is to be permitted absolutely or subject to conditions or limitations as it may deem fit. So after the opposition proceedings are over, the registrar has to decide what to do with the application. Submission of evidence. Any evidence upon which the opponent and the applicant may rely. So both the parties, whatever evidence, it could be documentary, it could be circumstantial. Any kind of evidence that both the parties rely upon is to be submitted to the registrar within the prescribed time. The registrar shall give them an opportunity of being heard if they so desire. If they so desire. So it is not a shall provision that he has to give it without being asked for it. So there are a lot of points that you will find in various laws, not only IPR, wherein the language will say if they so desire, or if, and in some provisions, if they so desire will be missing. And if it only says that the registrar shall give an opportunity, that means PNJ, the principles of natural justice, they have to be adhered to. But when the if they so desire is added, that means the opportunity of being heard is no more a matter of automatic right. It becomes a matter of right which you only get if you ask for it. So that is also a different, like a peculiar feature of Indian laws, that they add if they so desire whenever they feel like. So you have to also like notice these things as lawyers. Please notice these small things. They tell you which right is automatic, which right is not, which right is a shall provision, which is a mandatory right, which right is an optional right. So all these things you can infer by the language of the bare act. So read the sections very closely and like take notice of these small things. Don't skip these things because they matter a lot. So if you go to do your masters outside, especially, all these things are tested. All entrance exams, all government exams, all questions come from these small parts. The registrar shall decide after hearing the parties and considering the evidence whether to accept the application or not accept it. So the basic point of this topic is that evidence of both the parties have to be submitted to the registrar. Section 22 talks about correction and amendment of the application. According to Section 22, the registrar may at any time, whether before or after the acceptance of the application, permit correction of any error in or in connection with the application, or permit an amendment of the application. So now it is a may provision. The registrar may at any time. So now the registrar is given discretion. He can permit or not permit any correction or amendment. However, if an amendment is made to a single application involving division of the application into 2 or more applications, the date of making the initial application is to be deemed to be the date of making of the divided application. Now, this basically means So there is a concept called priority date, which we use in patents. The effect of both the things are same. So I'll tell you in brief what that means. So this will make it easy for you to understand patent as well later. What happens is, like, I file an application, say for example, today is 14th September 2012, 2021. I file an application for trademark today. After say 6 months, so right now it's September, say in April of 2022, I feel that my application should be divided into two applications because I'm trying to get it registered for say two separate trademarks. I want to have two trademarks. If I divide my application in April 2022, when will my time limit start of, so trademarks are for a time limit of 10 years initially, and then you can renew it after every 10 years. When will my time period of 10 years begin? In April 2022 or right now? That is the question. That is the implication of this provision. My time period calculation will begin from today. Even if I divide my application after 6 months, even after a year, doesn't matter. Even after 5 years, my time period has been started since the day I filed my first application. Now, since in trademarks we don't have any time period restriction because it is the only intellectual property that we have in perpetuity, meaning that never expires. If you keep renewing it after every 10 years, you can have the trademark forever. For all other IPRs, we have limited time periods. Like for copyright, we did, it was lifetime plus 60 years of the author. For films, it was 60 years from date of release, etc. So 60 years we had in copyright. In trademark, we don't have any time period. So this provision does not have any practical implication. If you go to the patents, so patents have a time period of 20 years. So from the date of application, only 20 years you have, after which the patent will expire. You can't renew it again. There, this provision becomes very important because if I file an application today, okay, let's not get into that. It's a very big topic. It's a mistake of starting it right now because we'll do it in patents only. Let's just focus on trademarks for now. That if today I file the application and after 6 months I divide it into two, so my date of calculation of the time period will begin from today, not from the period after 6 months. This is called priority date, the date prior. Section 23 says when and how the registration certificate is to be given. A trademark is registered under Section 23 when an application for registration of a trademark has been accepted and either the application has not been opposed and the time period for filing an opposition has expired, or the application was opposed but the opposition is decided in favor of the applicant. Basically, either way, the applicant has won the case. Either it was not opposed or even if it was opposed, he won it. The registrar shall register the said trademark within 18 months of filing of the application. So within 18 months, the registrar shall means mandatorily register the trademark. The trademark shall be registered on the date on which the application was made. Here, this section comes into play, the second paragraph. The date on which the application was made will be the date of registration. From that date, the time period of 10 years will begin. So what is the term of protection of trademarks? As I just told you, the trademark shall be accorded protection for a term of 10 years, after which it can be renewed in perpetuity indefinite number of times. That's why brands like Coca-Cola have their trademarks since the 80s, because there is no time period. Had it been a novel or something or a movie released like before lifetime plus 60 years, right now it would have been in public domain. But trademarks don't fall in public domain. It's only when you fail to renew them do they fall in public domain. So please keep this in mind. This is the only IPR which is in perpetuity, which never expires. All other IPRs expire. Now, how do you renew your registration? Because you have to renew it after every 10 years because it's in perpetuity. Renewal becomes important here. On an application made by the registered proprietor of a trademark in the prescribed manner, in the prescribed time period, and with the payment of the prescribed fees, the registrar shall renew the trademark registration for a period of 10 years from the date of expiry of the original or the last renewal of registration. So after every 10 years, you keep renewing it. This is just a flowchart of the registration procedure from the beginning. Now, because the papers now are conducted online, but otherwise, if it was on paper, had you made only this chart, I would have known, the procedure. You would not need to write anything else. So this chart, you should remember, you can take a screenshot of this also, if for further this thing, because when you go for litigations, this chart will be of great help, because you will know when to file what document in the court. So you can go through this chart later. Now we have three kinds of trademark applications, but the time is over. So I will start with this tomorrow. Is there any doubt till now? I've been speaking very fast. I'm really sorry for that, because I had to wind up the topic. So if you have any doubt, you can please ask me. Okay, then I will wind up the class and I'll see you guys on Thursday. We'll discuss the paper first and then we'll continue with the topic.